Good day to all, comrades and friends. This is Global Weekly News, serial number 8. Pakistan celebrated 75 years of freedom completion on 14th August, and India celebrated 75 years fulfillment of freedom on 15th August. Comrades, first let us go to Cuba. There was a big fire accident, unprecedented in the history of Cuba. On 5th August, a major oil storage facility in Matanzas, Cuba, 65 miles east of Havana, was hit by lightning. A tank containing 25,000 cubic meters of crude oil caught fire. Since then, an enormous fire has been raging in Matanzas, that is spreading in Matanzas. The tremendous explosion and hard to control fire has led to several people, including firefighters, missing. Many others injured with severe burns, and hundreds were displaced from their homes. Cuba's president rushed to Matanzas on 6th August, interacted with the local officials, met residents of the town, and the next day interacted with the press and spoke about the heroic work done by the firefighters and the solidarity of the Cuban people. He said that Cuba will overcome this fire tragedy. 4 of the 8 tanks at the storage facility were affected by the fire. Clouds of dust now hover over the island. Scientists are monitoring the situation to see if the smoke resulting from the fire will lead to any negative health effects for the residents of the surrounding areas. There are about 4,000 people. Strange substances have been detected in the water supplies. Water in an old bathtub serving as the water source for cows is having unusual color and odor. The clouds have sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and carbon monoxide. Scientists are investigating the strange substances. The fire has led to thermoelectric plant in Matanzas out of service due to a shortage of water and contamination of water. This will likely lead to severe electricity outages, that is power cuts, amid record heat waves this summer. The state has to be alert in preventing fake news spread through social media. Due to US blockade, there is a shortage of spare parts and medicines. 243 sanctions imposed on Cuba are working as a stranglehold against pursuing any activity in Cuba. Many of the foreign organizations willing to help Cuba to overcome the crisis say that the process to send aid to Cuba is lengthy, with a licensing regime in place that requires expensive lawyers. Cuba's inclusion in the state sponsors of terrorism list means that banks in both the United States and abroad are reluctant to process humanitarian donations. Firefighters in Matanzas, aided by the reinforcements from Mexico and Venezuela, have been spraying foam on the fire to prevent it from spreading further. And helicopters have been pouring water on the other oil tanks to stop them from combusting. Cuba will struggle to rebuild these tanks and to solve its energy crisis. These problems are created and exaggerated by the harmful United States imposed blockade that has been in existence for the past 6 decades, ever since Cuba got liberated in 1959. The users on the social media shared the hashtag #BeStrongMatanzas on various platforms. Within 24 hours, the hashtag was shared by nearly 100 crore users. 100 crore people have signaled their support for Cuba, a solidarity the US blockade is unable to prevent. Mexico, Venezuela, Russia, Nicaragua, Argentina, Chile, and some other countries sent aid materials to Cuba. The ambassador of USA at Havana said there is no ban on any organization of America to send aid to Cuba. Joe Biden said that United States is prepared to send technicians to Cuba. But you see, comrades, Cuba is a 100% literate country. It does not need technicians. What Cuba needs is withdrawal of US sanctions on Cuba and removing Cuba from the list of countries sponsoring terrorism. Let us join in this international struggle for justice to Cuba. Viva Cuba! Viva Cuba! The second country we are going to Colombia. Peace talks in Colombia. On 7th August, Gustavo Petro was sworn in as President of Colombia. Francia Marquez was sworn in as Vice President. The historic Pact Alliance, the Left Alliance, has ended 60 years of rightist rule. New Colombian government has started negotiating peace talks with the National Liberation Army guerrilla groups. Cuba, Ecuador, Chile, and Norway have been chosen to mediate the negotiations between Petro's administration and the guerrilla groups. National Liberation Army, created in 1964 under the inspiration of the Cuban Revolution, is the last insurgent group with national action in Colombia after its 2016 peace accords. It has a presence in 200 municipalities with about 2,300 members. The peace dialogues had begun in Havana with the participation of other countries as guarantors of peace, including Chile, Venezuela, Norway, and Brazil itself. The negotiations were interrupted in 2018 by former President Ivan Duque. The first talks in 2017 took place in Quito and then in Havana of Cuba. During the elections, the largest active guerrilla group in Colombia announced a unilateral ceasefire as a demonstration of its interest in dialogue. Following the victory of the historic pact in July, National Liberation Army commander issued a statement reiterating its willingness to resume negotiations with the new government so that their results will bring peace with social justice for all of Colombia. The foreign minister of Colombia visited Cuba and met the negotiating team of the Liberation Army. Comrades and friends, let us go to Brazil. Well, in Brazil, there are elections for the president post on October 2nd. On 11th August, tens of thousands of Brazilians took to the streets in defense of free elections and against political violence and to launch the letter to Brazilians in defense of the democratic state of law. The actions organized by the Out Bolsonaro campaign, a coalition of diverse people's movements, trade unions, and civil society organizations have estimated that actions were organized in at least 49 cities of Brazil. The official launch of the letter, which has over 9,25,000 signatures or 925,000 signatures, took place at 10 a.m. at the Law School of University of Sao Paulo. 8 presidential candidates, including Lula da Silva, have signed in this letter. A group of 42 artists published a video reading the letter. Bankers also joined the initiative. In the opinion polls, Lula da Silva, the leftist candidate, is in the forefront, ahead of his rivals, ahead of Bolsonaro, the incumbent president. Fourth, again elections. We are going to see elections in Kenya. In the presidential election in Kenya, Central African country, in 2017, Kenyatta was won, defeating his nearest rival, Odinga. Odinga went to the court against the result. In contrast to international norms, the court has set aside the election. In the second round of elections, Odinga boycotted, and it was declared that Kenyatta won. 1 year after these elections, both Kenyatta and Odinga joined together. They decided to change the constitution. Now last week, elections took place between Odinga and the former deputy president William Ruto. William Ruto won with a narrow margin. All of them represent the capitalists. They are all supporters of neoliberal policies. Kenya has a demographic dividend. That is, it has more youth less than 35 years of age. But still, the unemployment is very high. Kenya is in debt trap. The health workers of Kenya are struggling for basic facilities, wage revision, and protection of public sector in health sector. The fifth, let us go to Guatemala. In Guatemala, a journalist was arrested. It's a political victimization. Let us see the details. Guatemala is a Central American state. The founder and president of El Periodico, the newspaper, Jose Ruben Zamora Marroquin, was arrested for money laundering. Actually, Jose Ruben revealed several corruption cases and fraudulent businesses of the rightist government. His arrest is a political victimization. Human rights organizations, journalist associations, and social movements have condemned Zamora's arrest. The arrest is an attack on the freedom of press and freedom of expression by the far-right government. On 29 July, officials from the Special Prosecutor's Office Against Impunity raided Zamora's home and the offices of El Periodico. While the raids were in progress at the newspaper's office, the agents of the National Civil Police detained Zamora and transferred him to the court. From there, he was sent to a prison. During the raid at El Periodico's facilities, its staff was held by the authorities for around 16 hours without food or medicines. On 8th August, court hearing started. Zamora was present in the court. In addition to Zamora, the journalist, an assistant prosecutor was also arrested for her positive participation in the crime of disclosure of confidential information related to Zamora. The investigative reports were published in El Periodico under the title The Fable of the Little Prince Who Wanted Everything. The person referred to is a 33-year-old businessman named Miguel Martinez, who has personal and business relations with the president and also has been dictating the government actions to his benefits. Zamora's arrest received widespread national and international condemnation. On social networks, hashtag "They Will Not Shut Us Up" was spread by numerous human rights activists, political leaders, and organizations. On 4th August, over 20 civil society, human rights, indigenous, peasant, and social organizations called for national days of mobilization 9th August and 11th August against corruption, high cost of living, in defense of democracy, and in solidarity with the journalist Zamora. The International Press Institute, International Center for Journalists, etc., along with a dozen other organizations, condemned the escalation of pressure on the media in Guatemala and called for Zamora's release. There is an unprecedented level of corruption in Guatemala. At least 5 Guatemalan journalists are currently in exile. More than a dozen former prosecutors, judges, and human rights activists have fled away from the country over complaints and arrest warrants. In June, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights added Guatemala to its list of countries committing serious human rights violations. The sixth item, we are going to Afghanistan, where Taliban are ruling the country for the past 1 year. Economic sanctions by the United States and the dress code restrictions imposed by the Taliban regime have only increased the suffering of women and girls in Afghanistan. According to the former Deputy Speaker of the Afghan Parliament, every day there is at least 1 or 2 women who commit suicide for the lack of opportunity, for the mental health, for the pressure they receive. The fact that the girls as young as 9-year-old are being sold not only because of economic pressure but because of the fact that there is no hope for them, for their family. As highlighted by the United Nations, at least 20 million, that is 2 crore people in Afghanistan are experiencing hunger. In its report, the Afghanistan Women Chamber of Commerce and Industry stated that close to 57,000 businesses were being run by women in the country. However, following the Taliban takeover of the power in August 2021, a large number of women-owned and women-led businesses have stopped operating. Afghanistan is suffering from humanitarian, political and human rights crisis. Only 1.5 million or 15 lakh girls are in school compared to 4 million or 40 lakhs girls in school in the pre-Taliban period. Several requests by United Nations human rights experts to the US administration to unfreeze the assets of Afghanistan's central bank have been unmet. The US is currently holding around $7 billion, that is 700 crore of Afghan assets, while the European Union has an additional $2 billion, that is 200 crore dollars. These funds belong to the people of Afghanistan. Afghan people have health problems of diarrhea, etc. Due to earthquakes and flash floods, more than 1,000 people died, thousands migrated. The last item, today let us go to Israel. Israel's latest aggression in the densely populated occupied Palestinian territory of Gaza constitutes war crimes committed with the support of US and the Western powers, assert Palestinians. 44 Palestinians were killed in Israeli attacks and more than 360 were wounded. The people who died are not leaders of Islamic Jihad. 15 of the people who died were children. Last week, Israeli forces arrested Sheikh Bashar al-Sadi, a senior leader of Islamic Jihad, from Jenin in the occupied West Bank. Francesco Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights situation in the Palestinian territories occupied since 1967, asserted that there is no justification for Israeli aggression inside occupied Palestinian territories, as international law only permits the use of force in self-defense. She termed the Israeli aggression illegal, immoral and irresponsible. Thank you, comrades and friends. Let us meet next week. Thank you. First, you will please share, and please, if you have any comment, please comment. Please share. Thank you.